Hi, everybody. Multiple hand waving. Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good night, whatever it is where you are. Hey, how you guys doing today? Today for me is October 22nd. It is Thursday, which means the week is thankfully almost over. I'm going to run you through what we did today, just in case you weren't in class or you got to go back and look at something. That's up to you. If you're taking the test right now and you're trying to find answers, well, good luck. I may babble a little bit. All right. So I'm just going to leave it like this again and kind of go through the slides that seemed to work pretty well yesterday. It's weird because I don't always know where to look. I'm going to look at the little green light right now. Look at the little green light. I'm going to look over here. I'm going to look down there. Anyway, sorry, got to stay amused. All right, so here's the deal for today. The plan for October 22nd, 2020. First of all, if you're seeing this today, there are virtual parent-teacher conferences tonight. Some of your families have signed up to chit-chat with me for a few minutes about how you're doing in class. And, honestly, the one thing I you got to do is make sure that I'm being honest about grades and hand and work and stuff like that. You guys are all, doing what I ask you to do, I think, as far as class goes, but it's kind of hard to tell. And so, I don't know how much I'll really have to say other than to talk about your grade. A quick reminder that next Wednesday, which is the 28th, is going to be the last day to hand in any old or resubmitted homework. So please make sure that you do that. Take advantage of the fact that I'm willing to take stuff late, and I will take it up to the last second. So, do a good job, get your stuff in, and pass the class. And last but not least, be checking your grades. Infinite Campus is updated for American history. And so, sorry, itchy arm. And so I want to make sure that you guys have an opportunity to look in there. If for some reason you don't know how to get an Infinite Campus yet, you're still not remembering your password, please just send me an email. I'll help you out. I promise. Check your grades. Again, I think some of the freshman teachers updated stuff and sophomore teachers updated stuff. So hopefully you've got a little bit better look at how you're doing. Okay. Now, today what we're going to do is we're going to finish off the last 4 ideas that go along with the populist era. And then we're going to give you guys some work time, which obviously you just kind of got a lot for yourself. Okay. All right. So the first slide today is on civil service reform. And, basically civil service jobs you hear a lot of people talk about, this person's a civil servant, that person's a civil servant. And that's true. Like the president is a civil servant, the governor is a civil servant, But the kind of civil service jobs I'm going to talk about today are the kind where you are not elected to office. So things like professional firefighters, professional police officers, the people that deliver your mail, the people who plow the streets, the public works department, and nationally things like federal judges and members of the president's cabinet. So those civil service jobs have been dealt with a couple of different ways throughout history. And back in the day, they used something called the patronage system to decide who got those jobs, meaning that in the patronage system, you didn't get a job because of what you knew how to do. You got a job because of who you knew or who you helped. And so it was common practice back then that if I was running for mayor or governor or president, that if I won, I got to name a whole lot of people to jobs. And generally speaking, in the patronage system, I am going to name my friends and I'm going to name people who helped me get elected, and maybe not always the most qualified people in the world. If you think about that, that's troublesome for a couple of reasons. First of all, you can have unqualified people doing jobs. Could you imagine if we had the village president got to name the fire chief and the chief of police, and they named people that helped them get elected rather than people who are qualified? You might have someone coming into your house trying to put out a grease fire with water. Don't do that, by the way. It's not how it works. And so in the patronage system, you got to name people. The other weakness to the system is every time somebody new got elected, someone new got assigned to the job. So there was never a long stretch where someone learned to do the job, learned to do it well, and then, continued on until they retired. That all changed when President Garfield was assassinated by a supporter who didn't get given a job. No, Garfield was not a cat. No, he did not eat lasagna. He was a president. He was shot by a guy named Charles Guiteau in Ohio. And Guiteau walked up to him and shook his hand and said, "Mr. President, my name is Charles Guiteau. I helped you get elected in Ohio, and you didn't give me a job," and pulled out a gun and shot him. Garfield died about a month later. The next president was put in charge of naming people and said, "Oh, heck to the no, I don't want to do this." Can we come up with a new system? And so the merit system was born. And in the merit system, I think this is pretty common sense. You get a job because you prove that you can do it and you prove that you continue to do it. In the merit system, if you're chosen for one of these government jobs, you keep the job no matter who gets elected or who wins or loses an election. Like for instance, my dad for years worked for a highway department and plowed the roads and fixed the streets and those kinds of jobs. And the way my dad got that wasn't because of who he knew. He applied, and then he had to take a written test, and then because he did well on the written test, he had to take a work test where he had to prove that he could work some of the different machinery. And because he did that better than the other people who applied, he got the job. To be a police officer, you have to take a test, not just a written one, but also a number of other physical demands in the test. Okay. And so we now use the merit system for these things. Things like postal workers are assigned based on the merit system. They have to prove that they are the best fit for the job. Okay. Second topic for today has to do with third parties. Obviously, I think you guys are aware that there are more political parties out there than just the Republicans and the Democrats. There are other people who run for president. It's not just going to be Trump and Biden. There's actually a big third candidate this year named Jo Jorgensen. Throughout history, there have been a number of third parties in American culture. We've had, there's an American Nazi party. We've had a Green Party, a Free Soil Party, a Women's Temperance Party. There was even a party for a while called the Falconists, who they never ran anyone for president, but they believed that we should all be allowed to carry automatic weapons and that we should colonize the bottom of the ocean by living in like snow globes. Who lives in a snow globe under the sea with a machine gun? Sounds like a bad idea. I don't know, man. I got mad at somebody and now we're leaking. Good luck. I hope you can swim. Anyway, back on topic. So during the populist era, there were some pretty important third parties that had an impact on American politics. The very, very first one was called the Grange, and the Grange is seen as one of the first major American third parties because they got nearly 1 million votes and they impacted the way that an election went. The Grange were made up of just farmers. And the reason that they started their political party is because they didn't feel like the Republicans and the Democrats were looking out for farmers. And so they ran one of their own and they got nearly 1 million votes, and it made the Republicans and Democrats pay attention to farmers more. In the next election of 1892, the populists were born. The factory workers saw how successful the farmers were and went, wait a minute, what if we combined our forces? And so the members of the Grange and factory workers combined themselves to become the Populist Party. The Populist Party don't win. They don't win the election. I know you're like, why do I care if they didn't win? We'll get to that in a minute. The Populists were the first third party to ever receive more than 1 million votes in a presidential election. They were, being the combination of the farmers and the factory workers, appealed to like the working people and what they needed and wanted, as opposed to what were considered to be the elite social Darwinist thing. So populism is born. It's the approach that basically tries to appeal to ordinary people who are afraid that they're not being looked out for by the elite Democrats and Republicans. But the real question with the third parties is they've never won. They've never won a presidential election. They've never won a major election. Why run if you can't win? And I guess that answer has two pieces to it. The first reason to run if you can't win is you want the Democrats and Republicans to end up having to steal your ideas. If I ran a third party and my whole thing that I pushed was that, I don't know, Pepsi should be the national drink. It's the only thing I care about. If I give speeches about Pepsi and literally the whole crowd applauds and I start doing relatively well in the polls, now I'm not going to win, but I got a few percentage points. Theoretically, the Democrats and Republicans might start to steal my idea and might start to talk about how Pepsi should be the national drink. And if that happens, I've kind of won because my idea is getting accepted. The second way that you can win without winning is if you can take votes away from somebody that you don't like. You can actually cause someone else to win the election by stealing votes away from another candidate. Okay. Last two topics for today are quick ones. The gold standard. I teach this because it's weird. There was once a time in American history where for every dollar bill, I got one laying over there. For every dollar bill that we had, there was $1 worth of gold that the government owned. And in order to print more money, they needed to have more gold. And so when you said, why is that worth $1? You would say, because the government has $1 worth of gold. We don't use this anymore. The reason that $1 is worth $1 now is because that's what the government tells us it's worth, and that's what we believe. If all of a sudden today the government said, from now on, we're not using dollar bills, we're going to use index cards as money, and an index card is worth $10. If businesses started to accept index cards and the government said that this was the way to do things, this becomes the new money. It's a little weird when you think about it, that your money is just a piece of paper. But it wasn't always that way. It used to be backed up by gold. Last but not least, the election of 1896. I don't usually talk about every political election. Obviously, we've talked a little bit about Trump and Biden because it's what's going on currently, but we didn't talk a ton about elections so far. But the election of 1896 is important for one really big reason. You have two candidates, two old dead white dudes, one named William McKinley and one named William Jennings Bryan. And they were really separated by they disagreed on a lot of things, but the major issue that they disagreed on decided kind of the course of the nation for the next 124 years, okay? William McKinley was what is known as an imperialist or an expansionist. Imperialists and expansionists believe that the United States or their country should spread out and take over territory around the world, and that the country should become involved in world affairs. William Jennings Bryan was an isolationist. Isolationists think that countries should stay to themselves, that they shouldn't take over territory around the world, and that they shouldn't get involved in other countries' stuff. So basically, it's an election of, should we go out and take over territory and expand in the world, or should we stay to ourselves? Now, if you think about the last 124 years of American history, I think you know who won. Again, McKinley was the expansionist, Bryan was the isolationist. We live in a world where we are a very global country, where we have territories all around the globe, and we are involved in international affairs. So hopefully it's fairly obvious to you that William McKinley won. And that's going to go a long way into our next and last chapter this quarter that we're going to do Friday, Monday, and Tuesday. So we can take a test on Wednesday. Now, that's really it for today. That's what we did. If you have questions about homework or what you need to be doing, please make sure and reach out to me. If if you need me, just ask. I'm here. Hope you're well. Hope everyone around you is well. Hope you're doing okay. Make sure you take some time out for yourself today to do something you like to do, because, man, it's hard. The weather's going to start getting junk fast. Take it easy. Bye. It was nice to talk to you. I'll see you later.